I'm building a kingdom and it's made out of cards. I'm building a card kingdom.
Valeria Card Kingdoms, set up on the table here. Let's take a look at it. There are 4 rows of cards. These 4 rows of cards include monsters, 2 rows of citizens, 1 row of domains. We're going to talk about each of those individually here in a second. They also include your personal tableau of cards. To start the game, you start with a Duke. If you're first player, you get this first player marker. 2 gold, 1 magic token. You also start with a peasant and a knight and a reference card, which the reference card is really nice to have. We'll actually use that to go through kind of how the game plays. Let's start with the citizens. Citizens are what you're going to be accustomed to when you play these roulette type games. So if you've played a game like, say, Machikoro, maybe Space Base, something like that where you're rolling die and then die activate things that are happening in front of you, you're going to be familiar with this to a degree. There are some things that are really unique about this game though. So if you look at the number in the upper left-hand corner, let's take a look here at the champion. He's an 8. The champion, whenever there was an 8 rolled, you would activate the champion. For example, above there is the mercenary. He's a 3. He'd activate on a 3. So you're going to activate your citizens based on how the die roll, and you're going to get the rewards on the bottom. Now, the other thing, too, is every card in this game has an ability that activates when other people roll die. So that was always really, one of the really fun things for me in like Machikoro was when I had a card that triggered on other people's turns. It felt like I was getting free stuff. It felt like I was getting something cool to happen for me no matter what. Well, this happens on every time that the die are rolled. Actually, on every time the die are rolled, basically you're gonna get something. So you need to stay really engaged in this game. It's really cool because you do stay engaged in this game. But the one side of the card says when you roll the die, you don't roll cards, I guess, you get 4 strength, for example, with the champion. And whenever anyone else rolls, if they roll an 8 on their turn, you may exchange, this arrow means exchange, 1 gold for 4 strength. All these cards have different kind of cool powers on them. I'm not going to go through all those right now because there's just so many different cards. Like the base game comes with about 15 different cards, and then there's expansions already too to keep the game fresh for you. So that's really great as well. I'm kind of giving away that I love this game already, which is okay. I mean, I do really like this game quite a bit. The owlbear says for 4 strength, you will get 2 victory points at the end of the game. You'll also get 2 magic right away. So 4 strength, you get 2 victory points at the end of the game, and 2 magic right away. So this is a good time for us to talk about the different kinds of currency in this game. Gold is used to recruit citizens. Magic and strength are used to fight monsters. But then also magic is able to be used as kind of like a wild card. It supplements, I'll say, other kinds of currency. You can't replace entirely other currency with it. So this owlbear, I could obviously pay, I could pay 4 strength in order to beat it. Let's say I didn't have 4 strength though. I only have 2 strength. I could supplement it with 2 magic. Now all of a sudden I have the required power to defeat that owlbear. You cannot, however, say I've got 4 magic. I'm just going to defeat it with 4 magic. You have to have some of that currency in order to use the magic. Same thing with buying citizens. So this mercenary costs 3+, which is worth mentioning that you could do 3. I've got my first mercenary. The 3+ though is kind of an interesting thing because the cost of that mercenary is going to go up every time that I own more mercenaries. So the first one's going to cost me 3. Then if I already have 1, the plus means for every citizen in your tableau, you pay 1 additional gold. So you could do that or pay another magic. So magic can also be substituted for gold in this game, which is kind of neat. Going down now to domains. Domains are really cool. So before we talk about domains, I want to take a look at this Duke card. The Duke there says at the end of the game, you score 1 victory point for each fighter symbol that you have, and you score 2 victory points for each like stealth rogue element that you have in your kingdom. So that's kind of neat. I want to start thinking about buying a lot of those. I'm not going to necessarily buy a lot of workers or a lot of like holy cards because I need to get those ones that score a lot of points for me. But then also I score 1 victory point for each 3 of the resources there. So he's going to score things slightly differently than, say, this one. That Duke scores 2 points for 2 different kinds of cards. So you're going to want to buy more cards, not hang on to resources with that one, because it scores only at a 1-to-4 ratio for in resources. So anyway, each of these Dukes scores different symbols, and these symbols come into play quite a bit because if we're looking at the Shattered Hand, it says you need to have a holy card and a working class or working card in your kingdom in order to purchase it, but then also pay 7 gold or a combination of gold and magic. Again, not entirely substituting the gold for magic. If you do that, then you will get 3 victory points at the end of the game and immediately gain a holy champion or holy citizen from these center stacks. I guess they aren't all champions. There's some workers in there. So these, a lot of times, are one-time benefits. Like we're going to see that on the golden obelisk there. But also, sometimes they give you an ongoing power. So the Violet Thorn. The Violet Thorn is awesome because all of a sudden, if I have a fighter type and a holy type person in my kingdom, I can pay 7 gold. I get 3 victory points at the end of the game. But then also during my action phase, whenever I slay a monster, whenever I get an M, the M stands for a monster card, I gain a free magic. So if I can do that early enough in the game, all of a sudden slaying monsters just became a very, very cool thing for me to do. My turn, I'm going to take the die. And the first phase is called the roll phase. And the roll phase, easy enough, you're just going to roll a couple die, and you're going to get what the die tell you you're going to get. So a 1 and a 3. So typically what's going to happen on games where I've played like this before, you get the sum of the die. The more clever ones let you choose if you want to use the 1 or the 3. This one, though, is just generous. It says you get the 1 plus the 3, you get the 4, plus you get the 1, plus you get the 3. So typically in a craps-styled or roulette-styled game, you're only going to be getting the sum of the numbers or the actual individual number that is given. However, with the possibility of 3 numbers being given to us when we roll the die, and we're able to take the values of the individual die, but then also the sum of the die, which are the possible outcomes. It's our domain that we're in. Now, 1, when we look at the sum again here, cannot be rolled. A 2 could be rolled 1 possible outcome with a 1 and a 1 being rolled. A 3 could be given in 2 possible outcomes of a 2 and a 1, and then a 1 and a 2. So the odds when we get the sum of the die out, in this game, we would be operating under a specious argument to use these odds because we're also going to be able to take the single value of a die, 1 through 6, in 36 odds of getting a 5, which end up being substantially higher than the 1 in 6 odds of rolling a 7 because of the needing of a sum. There's no possible outcome of the 7. So in conclusion, math is fun. So this has been a really bad roll for me on my first turn because I don't have a 4 in my beginning cards here. However, if I don't have one of the cards, guess what? I get to take a resource because I get like kind of like a, I don't know, a consolation prize or something. Let's go ahead and roll again and see what I get. Okay, so a 2 and a 6 makes 8. Well, my 6 is going to trigger because I rolled a 6. If I had an 8, it would trigger. If I had a 2, it would trigger. So all the time in this game, things are triggering like crazy. I'm getting stuff like crazy on other people's turns. So now let's say it's my opponent's turn. They rolled a 5 and a 6. What a great roll. Because now On my turn, I get this side of the card. On my opponent's turn, I get this side of the card, which on the peasant and the knight are identical. So I'm going to get a gold and a strength for that roll from them. And then if I had an 11, a card that triggers on an 11, I would get whatever the 11 gives me. So that's the roll phase and the harvest phase where I'm able to get resources based on what happened in the roll. And again, if you didn't get to harvest anything from your cards, if your citizens didn't produce anything, you get to take a resource of your choice. Then we go into the action phase, which is the action phase is basically how we're going to acquire cards. They allow us to slay a monster on our turn if we have the resources to do that. They allow us to recruit a citizen to our kingdom, and it also allows us to buy a domain, those domains that we talked about down there. Again, very cool. Further, let's say I'm short resources and I can't quite get what I want to buy. I can, for an action, the cost of an action, take a resource. So I could take a strength, a magic, or a gold as a resource, and that's my action. I get 2 actions on a turn, so that's really the third phase. The fourth phase, as laid out on the aid, is end phase, and that's basically me doing this. Here are the die. It is your turn. So that is the end phase. That's basically the game. We're going to continue doing that until, this is kind of a nice touch that they put in the game here. They included these exhausted cards. So basically, we're going to continue playing until either we've slayed all the monsters, we've bought up all the domains, or we've exhausted a number of cards out here, a number of stacks equal to 2 times the number of players. So I assumed that I was playing a 4-player game, and a 4-player game sets up pretty well the same as most other games. So I'm going to take these exhausted cards and put them out equal to how many stacks would need to be exhausted before the game's over. So I know once this stack of cards here is gone, the game's over, but I'm going to put one of those in we bought up all of this card, we take an exhausted and put it there. So now I know it's a way to keep track of how close the game end is going to be coming. It isn't necessary, but it's kind of nice. It reminds us, I mean, like, it's one less thing to have to think about, like about, hey, did the in-game trigger this time? Do we have, 6 stacks gone if we're playing a 3-player game? That kind of thing. One final thing I want to mention too is in-game scoring. Those domains, those symbols that are the requirements to have those domains be purchased for you, also score you points at the end of the game. So when you look at those cards, they have those requirements on there that you need to own or have these kinds of citizens in your kingdom. Well, then also those symbols are going to give you points based on the Duke that you have. So the Duke that I had, this card over here with 2 of these like roguelike symbols, will be worth a bunch of points for me at the end of the game because it has 2 of that symbol on there. So those symbols score points as well. Domains just score you a lot of points. Domains are really cool, and they're one of the reasons why I really like this game. It makes this game a little unique from other games in that it gives you kind of like those ongoing powers, give you almost like a player power or a tableau building kind of thing. So that's really the game kind of in a nutshell. Let's get back to the studio, and I'll give you some final thoughts. So Valeria Card Kingdoms is a very good game. Building a kingdom and it's made out of cards. Hey Luke, bring the hot dogs.
What are you doing?
I
liked that game.
That was just a gag done for the Instagram. Trying to be funny there. No, that was just for laughs. My copy of Machikoro, like the base game, and then that expansion standalone that I burnt the box of are all in one box now. And I kept that game. There's no reason to get rid of that game. It's a perfectly good game. As a matter of fact, I'll play Machikoro later this week when I have some younger people coming over, some kids, that game will be easier for them to grasp. But I do like Valeria a lot more than Machikoro personally, for myself. And they're going to get comparisons. They're pretty similar games. This and Space Base, they're all kind of the same. Put cards into a tableau and then hope that your numbers pop. This is my favorite one of them so far. It edges out Space Base by just a little bit. So I really do like this game quite a bit. And I'm going to go ahead and just get into some reasons why, I guess. My pros, the amazing components in this. I don't know if you picked up on this or not, but I really like the dice in this game. They're really, really cool. They're the big chunky dice like you see in King of Tokyo. First, I think, is where we kind of saw those big chunky dice, but that's an awesome component they put in there. That cost extra money, but it made the game more fun, and it made the game a little more enjoyable. And I love it when companies do that, when they do that little, like, I'm going to put a little extra flourish in there that doesn't have to be there, but I'm going to do it anyway because it'll make the players happier, enjoy the game more. The cards that come in the game have these little tabs in there, so it's easy to file these cards away. I think you can see that. And then the box on this side has these foam inserts. Like, I know of a game called Trains that had the foam in there so that it was ready for expansions, but then you didn't have to have an empty box with cards sloshing all over the place until it filled up. So I really liked how they did that too. I mean, I'm not one to typically talk about box inserts being really good, but I like how they did that one. And it is ready for a bunch of expansions, and there are a bunch of expansions already, which I'd love to get a chance to play at some point. I'm still just exploring this base box, though, so maybe keep an eye on this channel if you want to see those expansions, because I'm hoping to do those as well. At any rate, really do love this game a lot. It's super simple to learn. If someone's played Machikoro, they're going to understand this game really well. If they haven't played Machikoro, they're going to get the idea of, like, these numbers match. It's going to make this thing fire. I'm going to get these things. I want to get these things to buy more cards, to get more victory points, that kind of idea. It's just a pretty simple game to explain. I think that it's not going to be difficult for anybody to grasp this game. I also love how this game is maybe the best at engaging players around the table. So as people are rolling, you're really invested because you know something's going to pop for you. There's no chance that you're not going to get anything because no matter what rolls, you're going to get to take a resource as like a consolation prize kind of thing. But then also, like, I really love that it's like in Dice Forge, and then also like in Space Base and Machikoro, but then also this game, that whole idea that I'm engaged because I might have things happen to me or for me on other people's turns. I really love that. As someone who has like some ADD myself, and then have lots of friends that do have ADD, that helps to keep people playing the game and involved and focused, and there's not gaps in player turns because people are staying there focused. Whereas, you know, that thing that's creeping into all of our gaming circles where someone's on a phone between their turns and you're like, hey dude, it's your turn, and they gotta reacclimate themselves to the board and everything. None of that with this game because everyone's playing all the time. It's a really fun theme too. I like the medieval thing that you're building a medieval village. That to me, it just makes a lot of sense that, like, I'm getting villagers to come to a village because there's peril out there. Also, I didn't mention this, but it has a single player variant. Single player variant isn't as fun as the multiplayer variant to me because I like the player interaction and I like playing with other people in general, period. But the single player is perfectly playable, and it'd be a fun way to play and just pass some time if you are a solo gamer. So those are all the positive things. The only con I can think of, and it's not even a con, it's just what you have to do when you learn these games, is there's some symbols on there that you're going to have to figure out. Like the arrow means transaction, the greater than signs. I mean, like, it's not terrible at all, and I think that it's something that I picked up, no problem at all. But, like, this is something that, like, if I were going to try and explain this game to maybe my dad or somebody who isn't as familiar with games, they're going to take a minute to try and figure these symbols out. But if that's the biggest con I can come up with, it must be a pretty good game. It's just overall a really good game. I'm going to be honest. It's good. So I'm going to give it the rating on our scale here. We do a wrench rating. Anything above a 4 gets accepted into our arsenal of games. I don't know how you want to say it. And I break down I know a lot of times people rate games, but they just kind of do this, like, abstracted, just here's the number I like. I like to kind of categorize things and then come up with kind of an average or kind of like a final rating on it. The fun on this game is really good. I like this game quite a bit. A 4, it's a very strong 4. If I did half numbers on this, I would give it probably 4.5. It's really a fun game. Just a lot of fun. Not much difficulty in getting it to the table. Not much difficulty in trying to get people to play it because it looks fun. It is fun. The replayability on this, right off the bat, you get, I think, like maybe 15 or so citizen cards right off the bat, and then you get also some additional, like, monster types right off the bat in the base box. That's going to give you quite a bit of game to play. You're going to get dozens of plays probably in this before you start wanting more. And then if you do get those dozens of plays, there's tons of expansions for this already, and I think there's plans for more probably, as there's just a lot of room in that box to grow this game. So I think replayability is going to be a really strong point on this. The mechanics are going to stay similar, but I think that the addition of new cards is going to keep it fresh for a really long time. So it gets a well above average rating of 4 out of 5. Again, maybe if I did half ratings, I'd give this one a 4.5. And then the design and the art on this is really awesome. I love the graphic design. I said there are symbols to learn, but they're clean, and you can figure them out pretty quick. The player aids help quite a bit with that symbol stuff. The big chunky dice, the going over above and beyond with the components, I give them a 5 out of 5 on this. The art on this is the best one out of any of these roll the die kind of games. When I look at Space Base on a table compared to this game on a table, Space Base is what this gets compared to a ton. I mean, I'm not trying to keep bringing that game up, but I feel like this game has much more table presence. The art on this is really nice. I just really like it a lot. So where do I put this game at for my final rating on it? Well, I'm going to give it a final rating out of 4 out of 5 wrenches, which makes this a Board Game Mechanics accepted game. So we're going to leave it at 4 out of 5 wrenches. Board Game Mechanics accepted. Really do like this game. Really do enjoy it. Probably don't burn your copy of Machi Koro, but this would be a nice addition to your collection if you do like that kind of game. So anyway, I've been Joel. If you like this review, maybe think about subscribing. Hit me up in the comments. And then also you can get a hold of me other ways by getting to our website, which is www.bgmechanics.com. You can find that in the notes of this video. There you can do a lot of contact with us. So anyway, I've been Joel. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it.
Building a kingdom and it's made out of cards. Building a card kingdom.